Russia is a part of Asia-Pacific as well, and we have repeatedly stressed that the aggressive military drills that are not directed at addressing common threats, like new challenges, terrorism, piracy or natural disasters, destabilize the situation. They do not strengthen the regional security but on the contrary erode this security. Therefore, any measures aimed at reducing the potential for conflict, or, in this case, it would be more accurate to say, not so much at strengthening security as at minimizing security risks, can only be welcomed. There is 1 month left until Election Day. Nevertheless, there is still a high probability that our adversaries will organize extremist protest actions aimed at discrediting Russia and its leadership and at discrediting and marginalizing the electoral processes in our country. This year, too, invitations to the aforementioned September elections have been sent to 12 international organizations and more than 100 countries. As of today, August 20th, representatives from 55 of these countries have already confirmed their intention to visit Russia. Among them are Russia's traditional partners from the CIS, the SCO, BICS, ASEAN, and countries in Africa, the Middle East and Latin America. The combat capabilities of the Ukrainian armed forces are being systematically reduced as a result of the effective actions taken by the Russian armed forces to suppress the military potential of the Kiev regime. In an attempt to cling to power, the regime controlled by Western sponsors, Zelensky's terrorist regime, has set its sights on escalation, relying on lethal weapons and equipment supplied by NATO countries. On average, 60 civilians were injured and 10 killed every day as a result of attacks, including criminal attacks, by the Ukrainian armed forces. Footage is circulating around the world showing women falling to their knees before representatives of the Territorial Recruitment Center, whose hands are covered in blood up to the elbows. And that is no figure of speech. No, this is no longer a metaphor. Look at these images. Those hands are truly covered in the blood of the very people they are trying to drag out of their own homes. And these poor wives, sisters, mothers, citizens of Ukraine and Ukrainians, are kneeling before these monsters and begging for mercy. This is what the whole Kiev gang has reduced its own people to, simply for money from the West, for money from those who have spent decades dreaming of taking revenge on those Ukrainians, those Red Army soldiers who defended Ukraine, their land, from Nazism and fascism, and who were victorious back then. In the style of Gogol and in the spirit of his immortal novella Taras Bulba, one might ask, well, my son, did the West help you? The West that organized your life through Euromaidan and dragged you into this political farce that is actually just mad and unconstitutional. Against this backdrop, I would like to emphasize that the sole guarantor of Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity has been, and can only be, Russia, as Russian President Vladimir Putin has repeatedly emphasized. The New York Times reports that European capitals are scrambling to devise their own formats for negotiations on Ukraine, so as not to be left on the sidelines of history when the terms of a settlement are discussed in earnest. We, incidentally, are noting such moves at various levels through our existing diplomatic channels. These are interesting processes too. Last night, the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power station lost its external power supply due to damage to a power line and was switched over to backup diesel generators in accordance with standard procedures. Have you heard anything from the Western capitals? From Brussels, London, Paris, Berlin, Rome, Madrid? Well, has anything been said anywhere from Washington to Tokyo? No. And why is that? Do they not understand what the consequences might be? Do they not realize that these consequences will affect not only Eastern and Central Europe, but the whole world, because of the terrorist bacillus infecting the Kiev leadership, which feels it has the backing of the West? Transferring funds to the Kiev regime amounts to nothing less than aiding and abetting the organization of terrorist attacks. This constitutes a direct violation of the International Convention for the Suppression of the Financing of Terrorism of December 9, 1999, and the International Convention for the Suppression of Bombings of December 15, 1997. The Russian Federation is entitled to bring claims against those who sponsor acts of genocide, terrorism, or other international crimes committed by Ukraine. Europeans who are involved in plundering the interest generated by the reinvestment of the Bank of Russia's assets fall squarely into this category. Such actions will not go unpunished. The visit to Kiev by UNESCO Director General Khaled El-Inani is yet another manifestation of both double standards and the undermining of any standards enshrined in the United Nations doctrinal documents. It constitutes a breach of the principle of impartiality, taking sides in the conflict, and a disregard for the requirements, in particular, Article 6, Paragraph 5 of the UNESCO Constitution, which require the Director General to refrain from any action that might affect his position as an international official. How much airtime has been devoted on television to discussing how laws on foreign agents should be drafted? What was done to Georgia, to its legislators, to its public figures, who drafted a similar law to defend their domestic sphere, having experienced firsthand all the charms of American democracy? Georgia was subjected to all manner of abuse at every level, including, first and foremost, here in Canada itself. It is clear that when their own interests are at stake, universal values are simply cast aside.
Upgrade your news experience with the all-new HT app. Download now.
$25 करोड़ गरीब गरीबी को परास्त करके बाहर निकले।
For the good of our nation, let's work together and let's truly make America great again.
The fastest news breaks.
Requested PM saying that look, you will have to speak to Putin and to Zelensky.
The biggest newsmakers.
The relationship with India is probably the most important bilateral relationship the US will have for the rest of this century.
The capital delivered quite an election result today.
Expert analysis.
The million-dollar question today is how to stop this dance of death.
Ground reports.
I'm standing at the crossroad of the Kumbh Mela. Behind me are more than 100 entry ghats.
Long-form interviews.
Exclusionary politics is reflected in Manipur case as well. You don't bother because this is a small state.
Have you ever wondered what happens when a banking dynasty meets tides of world history, intrigue, and a dash of myth?
Why exactly did the US topple the Sheikh Hasina government?
HT videos. We don't just break news, we break it down.